Watch this digital lock snap shut on a stream of data. This visualizes the mechanical goal of recent internet safety legislation, blocking minors from accessing harmful material online. This is the UK Parliament, which passed the Online Safety Act to compel digital platforms to enforce strict age restrictions on user-generated content. And here is the European Parliament in Strasbourg, advancing similar access restrictions under the Digital Services Act and its guidelines for protecting minors. The legislative logic appears straightforward, but it encounters a hard mathematical limit in computer science. A server cannot systematically identify a user who is under 16 without definitively proving the exact age of everyone else. To comply with the law, platforms are forced to adopt a zero-trust model. They must treat every single internet user as a child until the user provides hard proof to the contrary. To protect a vulnerable minority from harmful content, the legislation mechanically requires the eradication of digital anonymity for the entire population. Consider a standard web request. An anonymous user node sends a clean data packet to a target server. Under an age assurance regime, a checkpoint drops into the network path, halting the packet. To pass, the node must attach a verified marker, requiring a biometric scan or government ID. Self-declaration, simply checking an "I am over 18" box, is no longer legally sufficient under these mandates. This technical shift rewrites the rules of engagement. It converts the internet from a decentralized network routing information into a mandatory identity verification apparatus. Platforms generally do not build these checkpoints themselves. They outsource the process to third-party verification intermediaries, specializing in document processing and biometric age estimation. Look at the resulting data flow. User traffic splits, sending continuous streams of highly sensitive personal information into central databases held by these private, third-party firms. By aggregating biometric scans and passport data, the system creates massive, centralized honeypots. The risk is not theoretical. In 2020, a single leak from 7 free virtual private network services exposed 1.2 terabytes of data, compromising the personal information and passwords of 20 million users. Identity databases of this scale are structurally irresistible to cybercriminals and state-sponsored hacking groups. By attempting to legislate online safety, lawmakers have inadvertently mandated the construction of catastrophic cybersecurity vulnerabilities. This mandatory data collection directly collides with existing legal frameworks designed to protect user privacy. This policy report from European Digital Rights isolates the specific threat. As the header indicates, the widespread collection and retention of biometric data constitutes a severe breach of privacy rights, particularly for the children the law intends to protect. The General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, enforces a strict principle of data minimization. It legally binds platforms to collect the absolute minimum amount of user data required to provide a service. This animation models the conflict. The funnel represents data minimization. Watch what happens when the massive blocks of biometric and identity data required by age assurance are forced through the system. The mechanism breaks. Platforms are caught in a legal paradox. To prove they are compliant with new child safety rules, they must systematically violate the fundamental privacy rights established by data protection laws. Confronted with invasive verification checkpoints, users rarely choose strict compliance. They actively deploy technical methods to bypass the gates. This graph charts real-world behavior. As the UK Online Safety Act rolled out, researchers observed a sharp spike in the adoption of virtual private networks. Teenagers and adults route traffic around the checkpoints, tunneling through servers in offshore jurisdictions. This displacement generates a severe secondary risk. Users seeking to avoid ID scans migrate toward free, unregulated, and frequently predatory VPN providers. These bad actors often track, log, and sell the sensitive browsing data of their users. The law pushes minors directly into the hands of data brokers. Regulators lose all oversight. The legislation removes users from monitored, semi-regulated platforms and disperses them into the dark. The system fails mechanically. Instead of mitigating harm, the mandate forces vulnerable users out of the light and directly into the most dangerous, unregulated corners of the internet. This page from the Human Rights Assessment details the broader societal cost. Tying internet traffic to legal identity makes anonymity impossible. This exposes specific populations to immediate risk. Whistleblowers, human rights defenders, Dissidents and survivors of abuse rely entirely on digital anonymity to communicate safely. The mere awareness that an unrestrained, identity-linked data apparatus exists produces a chilling effect. It suppresses legal, free expression because citizens know their private browsing habits are permanently tethered to their names. This is Edward Snowden. Over a decade ago, his disclosures detailed the precise dangers of mass, centralized data aggregation. This is the headquarters of the National Security Agency. The commercial infrastructure now required for corporate age verification mechanically mirrors the vast collection architectures built by state intelligence agencies. Dismantling the possibility of anonymous interaction constitutes a structural threat to the democratic freedoms that rely on private communication. Rejecting identity-based age verification does not mean abandoning child safety. Look at this policy recommendation. It explicitly advises lawmakers against mandating identity-based checkpoints, pointing toward effective alternatives. The alternative is a shift from access control to design control. Instead of interrogating the user at the door, regulators can address the mechanics of the platforms themselves. This involves specific architectural changes. Regulators can force technology firms to disable infinite scroll, stop algorithmic amplification by default, and break predatory engagement loops. Turning off targeted ad trackers for all users mitigates online harm at the source. It eliminates the financial incentive to push extreme content, and it requires zero mass identity verification. This safety by design approach attacks the data extractive business models that make platforms dangerous in the first place. It regulates the architecture rather than the audience. True online safety is achieved by building secure environments. Pursuing an entirely sanitized internet through mandatory identification inadvertently constructs a global privacy nightmare.